Good morning, dear children. Good morning, dear children. Come back to online classes. Today, we are going to learn Civics chapter Electoral Politics. First topic today is what makes election in India democratic. We get to read a lot about unfair practices in election. Newspapers and television reports often refer to such allegations. Allegations here means a claim or assertion that someone has done something illegal or wrong, typically one made without proof. Most of these reports are about the following: inclusion of false names and exclusion of genuine names in the voter list, then misuse of government facilities and officials by the ruling party, excessive use of money by rich candidates and big parties, intimidation of voters and rigging on the polling day. Intimidation means the action of frightening or threatening someone. Then, intimidation of voters and rigging on polling day. Rigging means here fraud and malpractices indulged by a party or candidate to increase its votes. It includes stuffing ballot boxes by a few persons using the votes of others. Many of these reports are correct. We feel unhappy when we read or see such reports. But fortunately, they are not on such a scale so as to defeat the very purpose of elections. This becomes clear if we ask a basic question, such as can a party win an election and come to power not because it has popular support but through electoral malpractices? This is a vital question. Let us examine various aspects of this question. Independent Election Commission. One simple way of checking whether elections are fair or not is to look at who conducts the election. Are they independent of the government, or can the government or the ruling party influence or pressure them? Do they have enough power to be able to conduct free and fair election? Do they actually use these powers? So the answer to all these questions is quite positive for our country. In our country, elections are conducted by an independent and very powerful election commission. It enjoys the same kind of independence that the judiciary enjoys. The Chief Election Commissioner is appointed by the President of India. But once appointed, the Chief Election Commissioner is not answerable to the President or the government, even if the ruling party or the government does not like what the Commission does. It is virtually impossible for it to remove the Chief Election Commissioner. Very few election commissions in the world have such wide ranging powers as the Election Commission of India. Election Commission takes decision on every aspect of conduct and control of elections from the announcement of the election to the declaration of the results. It implements the code of conduct which we have studied in the previous classes and punishes any candidate or party that violates it. During the election period, the election commissioner can order the government to follow some guidelines to prevent use and misuse of governmental powers, to enhance its chances to win election or to transfer some government officials. When on election duty, government officers work under the control of the Election Commission and not the government. In the last 25 years or so, the Election Commission has begun to exercise all its powers and even expand them. It is very common now for the Election Commission to reprimand the government and administration for their lapses. Here, reprimand means a formal expression of disapproval. When election officials come to the opinion that polling was not fair in some booths or even an entire constituency, they order a repoll. The ruling party often do not like what the election commission does, but they have to follow. This would not have happened if the election commission was not independent and powerful. Popular participation. Another way to check the quality of the election process is to see whether people participate in it with enthusiasm. If the election process is not free or fair, people will not continue to participate in the exercise. People's participation in election is usually measured by voter turnout. Turnout here means the percentage of eligible voters who cast their vote in an election. Turnout indicates the percentage of eligible voters who actually cast their vote. Over the last 50 years, the turnout in Europe and North America has declined. In India, the turnout has either remained stable or actually gone up. In India, the poor, illiterate, and unprivileged people vote in larger proportion as compared to the rich and privileged sections. So, in India, poor, illiterate, and unprivileged people vote more as compared to the rich and privileged sections. This is in contrast to Western democracies. For example, in the United States of America, poor people, African Americans, and Hispanics vote much less than the rich and the white people. The interest of voters in election related activities has been increasing over the years. During the 2004 elections, more than one-third voters took part in campaign related activities. More than half of the people identified themselves as being close to one or the other political parties. 1 out of every 7 voters is a member of political parties. Here, voter turnout in India and US by social groups 2004 is given. You can see the graph. Then, common people in India attach a lot of importance to election. They feel that through elections they can bring pressure on political parties to adopt policies and programs favorable to them. They also feel that their vote matters in the way things are run in the country. Acceptance of election outcome. Our next topic is acceptance of election outcome. That means whatever outcome comes through the election, that should be accepted by the political parties. One final test of the free and fairness of election has in the outcome itself. If elections are not free or fair, the outcome always favors the powerful. In such situation, the ruling parties do not lose elections. Usually, the losing party does not accept the outcome of rigged election. The outcome of India's elections speaks for itself. The ruling parties routinely lose elections in India both at the national and the state level. In fact, in every two out of the three elections held in the last 25 years, the ruling party lost. So, children, now let us see the limitations and challenges to the elections in India. First, candidates and parties with a lot of money may not be sure of their victory, but they do enjoy a big and unfair advantage over smaller parties and independents. In some parts of the country, candidates with criminal connection have been able to push others out of the electoral race and to secure a ticket from major parties. Some families tend to dominate political parties. Tickets are distributed to relatives from these families. Very often, elections offer little choice to ordinary citizens, for both the major parties are quite similar to each other both in policies and practice. Smaller parties and independent candidates suffer a huge disadvantage compared to bigger parties. These challenges exist not just in India but also in many established democracies. These deeper issues are a matter of concern for those who believe in democracy. That is why citizens, activists, and organizations have been demanding reform in our electoral system. Can you think of some reforms? What can an ordinary citizen do to face these challenges? So these are the questions which we have to think about. Children, this is the end of the chapter electoral politics. Now let me tell you the portion of this pre-mid exam. Portion of pre-mid exam is from history chapter number 1, the French Revolution. From civics chapter number 1, what is democracy, why democracy. From economics, the story of village Palampur, that is first chapter only. Then from geography, also first chapter, India size and location. Then next thing what I want to tell you that the history notes of first chapter, the French Revolution, it is given on 29th July in your online classes. So please